Hello, this is Monday, May 4, 2015. Welcome to episode number 48 of the Vanguard Report. As you know, this is not the voice of the men's rights movement. We think men's rights and male issues, all that sort of thing, are just fine, but that is not what we talk about here. That is not the gospel that we preach. Around here, we preach the gospel of pulling feminism to pieces and scattering those pieces to the four winds. Strict anti-feminism. That's the name of our game, and it's a game that we highly recommend to others. Why, there's even a strict anti-feminist manifesto, and in the next episode, we'll give you the link to it. Sorry, you'll need to wait a week for that. Meanwhile, I am Fiedelbogen, your host for this episode of the Vanguard Report, and my partner, Nick Redding, man of Canada and true son of the Alberta Prairie, is with us tonight as usual. Nick, say hello to the non-feminist men and women of the world.
Hey everybody, my name is Nick Redding. I'm with mensrightsedmonton.com. You can check out our YouTube channel, the antics that we've pulled at Men's Rights Edmonton. Men's Rights is one word. If you live in Edmonton, or if you know someone who lives in Edmonton and is interested in seeing feminism fall into the same disrepute as racism, they can get in touch with me through mensrightsedmonton.com. There's a contact us section there. And you can follow Men's Rights Edmonton on Twitter at Men's Rights Ed.
Thank you, Nick. This thing of meeting up in the real world in person seems to be a growing trend. I think it's going to snowball, and we're going to see more and more people having these little conferences out there in meat space. We will touch upon matters relevant to that here further along in the program. Oh, we'll have plenty to say about that. Can anybody say?
I hope we'll be talking about GG and DC.
You hope. You hope. You hope that. Well, okay, there's nothing like hope. Nothing like hope. Anyway, but before we get on to whatever we're going to get on to in the main part of the program, here's an item regarding the 2015 Toronto Domestic Violence Symposium, which will be held in, yes, Toronto on June 5th through June 7th of this year, 2015. The keynote speaker for this event will be Dr. Tanvir Ahmed, formerly, I say formerly, of White Ribbon Australia. Dr. Ahmed got into some serious hot water a few months ago when he publicly violated the White Ribbon Party line. Dr. Ahmed had the gall to mention that women are not the only victims of domestic violence. Men get slapped around too. White Ribbon Australia called Dr. Ahmed onto the carpet for a chastisement session, but apparently Dr. Ahmed wouldn't make a mea culpa, and so he parted ways with White Ribbon Australia. Dr. Ahmed no longer works for White Ribbon Australia. He has come over to the dark side. Okay, here's the article that I wanted to share. It's Q number 1 on the Q list. Here we go. Dr. Tanvir Ahmed, keynote speaker, 2015 Toronto DV Symposium. We are delighted to present Dr. Tanvir Ahmed as our 2015 Toronto DV Symposium keynote speaker. Ahmed is traveling from Australia to deliver what will be a spectacular presentation about the effect of domestic violence on men, women, and children. His comprehensive, balanced approach will drive the direction of domestic violence to a closer end, where both men and women will be seen as significant victims and significant perpetrators thereof. Dr. Tanvir Ahmed will deliver insight aimed at our judiciary as well as the public they officiate over. We desperately need to better understand the entire dynamics of DV, domestic violence, and IPV, intimate partner violence. And I'm not sure what the difference is precisely between DV and IPV. Anyway, articles such as this one, authored by Ahmed, are needed in greater numbers, addressing the whole of DV and IPV, intimate partner violence. And there's a link there to an article written by Dr. Tanvir Ahmed, which if you go to the website on your Q link, you will find that link and you can go and read that article. And a little citation from that article. There is too little acknowledgement of the importance of male disempowerment in debates surrounding domestic violence. Gender relations have changed dramatically in the past few decades, but discussions about family violence are stuck in the mindset of 1970s radical feminism. Well, the whole cultural conversation about gender issues is stuck in the 1970s. That's just the problem. That article caught my attention, and the backlash that it caused was alarming. Why? Who would not want to include men as significant victims of domestic violence when that is what science tells us? It was clear to me Ahmed would be an integral speaker at the 2015 Toronto DV Symposium. We look forward to having you in Toronto this June 5th, 6th, and 7th, 2015. Tanvir Ahmed's short bio. Dr. Tanvir Ahmed is an Australian-based psychiatrist, author, and local politician. He is a general adult psychiatrist seeing patients in a range of settings, varying from hospital inpatients, doing legal reports for the justice system, and seeing adolescents referred from schools. Tanvir has involvement in the media and writes on social and psychological issues in various Australian publications. He also appears regularly on radio and television. He is an elected local politician in a municipal area within inner Sydney. He is the published author of popular migration memoir, The Exotic Risol. I'll have to Google up the word Risol. I have no idea what that is. The Exotic Risol. He was once chosen by a Prime Minister's Committee as one of 100 future leaders of Australia under the age of 40. Tanvir has long held an interest in domestic violence issues, both from his experience in ethnic communities as well as the patients he sees within his practice. He was a White Ribbon Ambassador in Australia. Here we go now. He was a White Ribbon Ambassador in Australia for close to a decade, including helping to expand the campaign in Pakistan, which I gather is where he's from. He was forced to resign from his position after a feminist backlash when he wrote an article in the Australian newspaper arguing male violence can be an expression of underlying distress and male disempowerment was a growing factor in driving male violence towards women. Tanvir was born in Bangladesh but grew up in Australia. Okay, so he's not from Pakistan, he's from Bangladesh. Tanvir was born in Bangladesh but grew up in Australia. He is married and a father of 2 daughters living in Sydney. Well, we all know what happened with the White Ribbon Australia. And by the way, that's the end of the article. We know what happened with the White Ribbon thing in Australia. Nick, do you recall what happened with Dr. Tanvir Ahmed with regard to White Ribbon?
Yeah, he came out and said he spoke against the feminist victim narrative. I mean, he wasn't even active about it. He was just like, look, it's a little bit more even than what we were saying before, and we should pay attention to this. And he got shit canned.
He got shit canned. He simply,
He was sent to re-education. That's what they called it, isn't it? Or they said that he had to be sent there anyway.
I'm sorry, say that again, Nick.
They used it, and the White Ribbon used the words re-education
Oh,
in terms of
yes.
what was going to happen to Dr. Canville.
Yeah, he needed to be sent to their special re-education camp, I guess.
Well, no, literally, that was the thing is that
I know.
they like I can't remember exactly what was said, but the words re-education were used. That's what was so shocking.
Well, when wrong speak and wrong think crops up, you got to just jump in there and nip it in the bud. Otherwise, it gets out of control and it spreads everywhere and gives you no end of grief. So you got to really keep a close eye on wrong think and wrong speak. And he was guilty of both. Uh, Basically, whether Dr. Ahmed realized it or not, whether he was thinking this or not, he was expressing, giving voice to a non-feminist narrative. A non-feminist narrative. Anything.
Yeah, it wasn't even anti-feminist. It was just not. It was just asking to speak to say what he had seen from his own research and his own lengthy involvement in the issue of domestic violence. He was asking to speak that without
Well, without permission from headquarters.
yeah to say something that goes against orthodoxy or
Mm-hmm.
that stands outside of orthodoxy. It didn't even go against it.
Well, it does go against it, but he was taking a non-feminist line. He didn't say one word about feminism, didn't call himself a non-feminist. I don't know if Dr. Ahmed considers himself a feminist or not. Feminist, feminism, these are just words, and words all by themselves don't mean much without the thought behind it or without the reality behind it. But clearly, he violated the feminist narrative. And the feminist narrative, of course, is that men are guilty and women are innocent. And this thing with domestic violence is really very, very central to feminist propaganda. It's the main thing. As I like to call it, it is the crown jewel of feminism's anti-male talking points. The idea that men are thrashing the hell out of women in the middle of hearth and home. Uh, well, no, actually, they're not. Uh, Couples are not thrashing the hell out of each other all that much as a percentage of the total number of couples in the world. Serious couple violence is very much the exception. But feminism has created a myth around the whole subject of intimate partner violence and has painted intimate partner violence as something that men do to women. And all of the best evidence that we've got is that men and women do this to each other. Rarely does it get way, way, way out of hand. And it is almost entirely a 50-50 split. Although there are some cases where women do it to men more than men do it to women when you break it down into categories. And I won't get into that right now. But the point is that White Ribbon, organizations similar to White Ribbon, and the whole feminist orthodoxy continues to preach that men are beating up women massively in the home and that we have to do something about it. It's a way to put men in the doghouse collectively, to create an anti-male zeitgeist, and to justify any kind of anti-male move they want to make in their game. And when you attack the domestic violence narrative of feminism, you are doing major structural damage to the entire feminist propaganda machine. So, I am glad to see Dr. Tanvir Ahmed coming to Toronto to speak at the Anti-DV Symposium. At that event, they will be giving a balanced picture about the reality of domestic violence and not the feminist version. And I am waiting to see how many feminists show up with picket signs on the street outside of this symposium. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, yeah, because at this
I
point,
wonder if there'll be any bomb threats. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
well, every time there was, like back in 2013 um, when all those big protests were happening in at the University of Toronto,
Yeah.
every time I kept thinking, no, no, they're gonna know this time not to behave like animals. Right, or like even up to the latest incident where that one professor took his students to come and disrupt Janice Flamingo's talk by banging on pots and pans and singing the Internationale. Um, uh, like that shocked me just because I thought that by then they had learned about all the bad publicity they were getting.
Well,
But
they actually, Nick, they did learn something. They came in a small squad instead of making it a huge lynch mob.
well, they were still pretty effective.
They were effective, but not having a huge swarm, they didn't attract the media.
Well, I mean, Danny Boy caught it on video, and that made its rounds. I think actually that
I mean, the big media didn't come in there.
no, but the media did.
Well,
Thunderfoot covered that. But
well,
anyway,
that's our media, and we're not the mainstream media. But yes, yeah, you're right. I mean, that kind of media coverage came in.
but I mean, so yeah, it is going to be interesting to gauge, like watching what they do at Dr. Tanvir come. I mean, he's Indian. He spent years working with Indian or Pakistani. He spent years working with the White Ribbon Campaign. So it's going to be interesting to hear how they, if they show up and how they demonize him, how all that goes, because it's going to be a big. I think it's going to be a big, like
It's going
determine.
to be a big to-do,
Well, no, it's going to be a big determinant. It'll be a big way to gauge the
a way
way
to gauge what's happening,
where their heads are at. You know what I mean?
a barometer.
Yeah. So that's all I had to say about that.
Yeah. Well, the fact that this guy is an apostate from the White Ribbon just adds some extra spice to it. And I think there's plenty of White Ribbon types uh, in Toronto. In fact, I think they have one of their big headquarters there in Toronto, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be on June 5th, 6th, and 7th. So that's just about a month from now. And we'll see how that plays out.
I look forward to it. Damn! I wish I had some vacation time. Yeah, coming up. But I guess there's gonna have to be one big event in Toronto that I missed at least.
You know, going totally off topic here, something else I look forward to is the flyby of Pluto when the New Horizon spacecraft goes by there. It's going to be sometime in July. They're going to get close-up photos of Pluto, and damn, I'm looking forward to seeing that. I know that's got nothing to do with our topic, but I couldn't resist adding that. That's something I look forward to almost as much as this thing is going to happen in Toronto. Anyway, you got to think big and you got to think just way out there. So, what do we got next? Yes. Now, we go on to the big story of the day. Nick, you mentioned this earlier. Yes. How many clever gate words can you dream up? A couple of weeks ago, we had Expo Gate or Badger Gate. Now, hard upon Expo Gate's heels, we have, well, what shall we call it? Bomb Threat Gate,
Yeah,
GamerGate Gate, Arthur Gate, Shoe Gate. Nick, you got any suggestions?
it already goes by hashtag GG and DC, which I recommend anybody interested following this story. You can check it out for yourself under that hashtag. That's hashtag GG in DC.
Yes.
Uh, and it's all about how, I mean, yeah, Arthur Chu is looking like the prime suspect, but there's really no conclusive evidence linking him to the crime, other than, okay, what happened with GGDC was about 300 GamerGators met up in DC, among them Milo Yiannopoulos and
Base Mom, Christina Hoff Summers,
Christina
the
Hoff Summers.
unicorn feminist,
Yeah, and there was another unicorn feminist there,
Kathy Young.
Kathy Young, and Ralph Retort, and a couple of big names. Um, and they uh, there was a Twitter, there was the anti-Gamergate squad, Arthur Chu and the likes, doing their typical, oh my god, can
But
you?
the big thing here was one particular tweet that Arthur Chu made, something about it all ends tonight. Is that
Yeah,
how?
it was part of a thread, where they're going, oh my god, I can't believe that they're letting a hate movement congregate there, and so they sent the establishment. It's called the Local 16, I believe. They,
That's the name of the restaurant, I think, where they gathered.
yeah, that it's a
They had
restaurant.
some kind of a for hire banquet room there in the restaurant.
Yeah, it's a restaurant slash bar, and there were about 300 people there, so I can only imagine that it was 200, 300 people. So I can only imagine that it was, yeah, a banquet room or something like that. And so first, Arthur Chu had sent them an email saying, well, first he said something about whatever, it's ending tonight with them there. Now, presumably that he thought that it would end tonight with him sending an email to the establishment owners, telling them that this is a hate group that's targeting women in video game development.
And the establishment owners were going to just jump right up and jump through the hoop and, oh, thank you for telling us that. We'll kick those people out.
Yeah, instead they responded with, anyone can come to my bar, this is America.
Oh, I
Uh,
like that. I wonder if it had been Canada, what would they have said?
oh boy, I shudder to think. But but then shortly after this little kerfuffle, where Arthur Chu was sending emails and declaring that it was ending tonight on Twitter, shortly after that, the place was evacuated. They were told that it was a fire drill by staff of the bar, and then when they got outside, there were police who said that
Fire drill. Oh, please.
it was another matter, I believe. Well, there was a tweet about a bomb threat. It's unclear to me whether the cops actually got a bomb threat phoned in or whether they were just investigating the bomb threat on Twitter.
Well, the tweet about the bomb threat was from somebody with a Russian name.
Okay, well, yeah.
I'm not saying that this is an international matter, but anyway,
Clearly it was Putin.
was it Putin?
One of the big.
Who would have guessed?
Uh, but yeah, somebody alleging that there were bombs throughout the place. Yeah, they shut it down. But many a lulls was had anyway by the GamerGators. It was a great time for everyone, despite their attempt to rain on the GamerGate parade. Like it is interesting when you see social justice warriors, like when you see just how pissed off they are at the enemy, which is us, having fun.
Mm, I think they're pissed off at the thought that anybody anywhere on Earth might be having a good time for any reason.
Well, they really hate it. They really hate it when their opposition gets
Especially,
together.
but it's especially bad when their perceived enemies are laughing and joking around and having a good time. They
Yeah,
don't like that.
yeah. It's unreal. I mean, it's just, yeah.
Oh, it's real. It's real.
No, I mean it really, like, it seems like I'm beating a dead horse with this, but it shocks me, even in my dealings with feminists, just how angry they are at the idea of other people congregating, because it's so central to them that outcasts have no friends, be losers, and get, that they are cut off from everything when they are cut off from the social circle that social justice warriors dominate.
Which yes, they are the world.
Yeah.
They are the world. If you're cut off from their social circles, then you are just cut off. Full stop. You are cast into outer darkness.
And that's why it really
You know,
grinds.
they're being told, they're being shown that they are not the world.
Yeah, they're being shown that we can get together, and it really burns because we're congregating on a mutual dislike of them. That's pretty much why this whole social circle exists. Is like holy cow, like you hate these people, so do I. And again, these
Nothing
people,
like a common enemy to make. I'm sorry, nothing like a common enemy to make friends.
yeah,
Doesn't
again,
sound very nice, but it's one of the great truths of life.
these people being social justice warriors and feminists, and in general, cunty authoritarian types. Uh, yeah,
Yeah,
they, that's,
the authoritarian left. Yeah. Anyway, I got this article here. I thought I'd just read it. This is Q number 2. This was posted on AVFM. And let's pull this right up in the browser. Here we go. Q number 2. GamerGate, bomb threats, and hashtag GG in DC. And by the way, if you're on Twitter, you can look up the hashtag GG in DC, but there's several other hashtags that are also interesting that are some combination of letters or some variation on GG in DC. And you'll want to look into those also. Anyway, the online consumer revolt known as GamerGate has officially invaded meat space. And yes, this is of interest to men's human rights activists, even those who don't much like video games, although an awful lot of us do. Last night at restaurant Local 16 in Washington, D.C., over 300 members of the online movement gathered together to discuss their love of games and resist the authoritarian hydra of radical SJWism, hell-bent on controlling every square inch of popular culture. Boy, ain't that the truth. Every square inch of popular culture. Much to the detriment of the mainstream narrative put forth by outlets such as USA's ABC, the Washington Post, and other outlets, photographic evidence shows that excluding women and minorities was not on the menu. And there's pictures of the meeting, and there's plenty of women and minorities in the crowd. Admittedly, however, diversity in hair dye was lacking compared to their philosophical opponents. Yeah, that just on an aside here, that hair dye thing does seem to be an emerging tribal marker these days, doesn't it, Nick?
I don't know. Milo Yiannopoulos was there, and his hair. I mean, it was bleached blonde, which isn't quite the same thing as dyeing it color, but it was pretty. his hair was pretty um,
Well, colorful,
colorful and out there, and definitely flamboyant. And he is, he
but
is.
not rainbow colored though.
No, not. But I have dyed my hair funky colors, and I'm thinking of doing it again. Give me a break.
Well, I don't know. I wasn't meaning to give anybody a hard time there, but yeah, there seems to be a thing about rainbow hair and well, being a feminist or being a social justice warrior. It's just something I'm looking out for, looking at, and putting under the microscope a little bit.
Well, I think it's that it's because it gives them the appearance, the superficial appearance of being socially transgressive.
Oh, socially transgressive, and then also as in nature, um, flamboyantly colored animals, especially fish, tend to be dangerous or poisonous.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Bright colors mean poison.
And
But
there's a word for that, but I forget what it is.
yeah, but I mean, it's the same thing. Like you look like the thing. I don't know if I've talked about this on the show before, but on the show South Park, there's the goth kids. They all go on and on about how they hate conformists and they hate conformity, but they're like an ultra conformist clique of like 5 kids whose whose standard of coolness is when you act exactly like them. And I noticed that in the punk rock community, and actually, um, what's his name? I'm terrible with names. The guy who wrote Kerouac, Jack Kerouac, made the same observation about the hippies. He said one time that if the hippies saw him, that they would write him off as a dumb trucker because they were so focused on outward appearance, and that's why we have like the problem glasses and the colored hair. These are all they all suggest radicalism uh, um, and in a divergence from conformity.
Transgressive lifestyle, yes.
Yeah, but it's a sham. They are they are totally authoritarian, totally conformist.
Okay, well, let's get on with the article here. And looking at the two pictures of the anti-Gamergate people and the Gamergate people, I do have to say that the Gamergate people look like they all have natural hair, and the anti-Gamergate people overwhelmingly have, well, some flamboyant color going on. Just a passing observation there. All right, instead, everyone was invited, even the curiously aggressive anti-Gamergate columnist Arthur the Mindkiller Chu, a dogged, if not always coherent critic of rational thought. Christina Hoff Sommers, Dear Arthur Effect, why don't you take a break from Twitter and come to the meetup? Meet some nice people. Hard to demonize at a bar. That was a tweet from Christina Hoff Sommers. The event was organized by Gamergate luminaries Milo Yiannopoulos and Christina-based mom Hoff Sommers as a way for Gamergaters to meet, interact, network, and enjoy one another's company. In case you're new to Gamergate, the movement kicked off last summer as an investigation into corruption in games journalism and eventually exposed the radical feminist agenda of turning video game culture into a node for disseminating ideological feminist propaganda. Believe me, the gamer community is not the only place they do that, but it's just the latest and most conspicuous. The event went off without a hitch, despite repeated calls, tweets, and emails made to the host venue by SJWs demanding that the events be shut down, culminating in Arthur Chu's final message, "It's ending tonight." Whatever Chu meant by that statement, he looked pretty stupid when after midnight an anonymous bomb threat brought in the police. Well, so much for going off without a hitch. And here is the anonymous threat, which was apparently tweeted. It says, I have multiple bombs planted around the area in Gamergate in DC is being held in. If Gamergate in DC is not evacuated within the next hour, it will detonate. That was the bomb threat. And that got the police out, and that got everybody hustled out of the building. I highly doubt that Arthur Chu issued the threat, and I'm inclined to believe it was the work of a third-party troll, just as I'm inclined to think that the person who made the death threat against Anita Sarkeesian at Utah State was the work of a third-party troll. Naturally, we can't expect the establishment media to report this threat, but what we can do is observe a familiar pattern based on the experiences of Cafe in Toronto, last year's first annual International Conference on Men's Issues at St. Clair Shores, Zen Min's Male Students in Peril Conference last November, and the Honey Badger Brigade's recent travails at the Calgary Expo. The first people to have a pro-Gamergate presence in the real world were men's rights activists who came to say nothing except that gamers are awesome just the way they are, and censorship is bad. First, they'll slander our leaders and try to prevent venues from hosting our events. If that fails, they'll either show up themselves to pull fire alarms or block entrances, or we'll get anonymous death threats. While thus far no threats have led to serious violence, It raises our security fees and forces us to take extraordinary measures to ensure that events go forward without disruption. Meanwhile, the establishment media carries on as if we are the ones doing the threatening. While this pattern can be discouraging, GamerGate has responded to the bomb threat by planning meetups in Sydney, Australia, San Francisco, California, and Boston, Massachusetts. And side note here, I've heard that they've got something planned for, I think it was Sandusky, Ohio, of all places.
Oh man, I want them to have one in Edmonton.
Oh, yeah, that'd be nice. One in Seattle. Instead, oh hell, I drive to Portland for one of those, even though I'm not a gamer. Instead of being dispirited, GamerGate took the bomb threats as a challenge and is currently engaged in one thing that the men's human rights movement, excluding India, has only recently begun doing itself, showing up, having fun, and if anybody asks, declaring your non-affiliation with radical ideological feminism. I like that. Just declare your non-affiliation with radical ideological feminism, or any feminism for that matter. This is the non-feminist counterculture we need. Little additional work is required because totalitarian feminists will predictably show the wider culture just how tolerant and committed to diversity they really are. The key is to not let yourself be intimidated. Boy, that is so true. You know, I know from personal experience that if you just stand your ground, these people will eventually go away. That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah, and that's the thing about with men's rights Edmonton is that we don't have to take over. We don't have to topple the feminist establishment in Edmonton. We just have to exist and
You
exist.
have to eat up the foundation like termites.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, just standing your ground is really all you have to do.
So the key is to not let yourself be intimidated. Unlike the men's human rights movement, GamerGate has the advantage of being organized around video games, which are far more fun and sustaining than dreary discussions about domestic violence statistics, suicide rates, and male-only military conscription. Yeah, that is dreary stuff.
But it's a very true statement.
I believe we stand to take a page from their playbook and whistle while we work. Based mom, Christina Hoff Sommers, summed it up rather nicely, speaking to the gathered crowd of gamers. The media campaign against gamers has astonished me, not because it was one-sided and recklessly wrong and stupid, but because of all of you. The gamers were the first group that I've seen that pushed back their plans to turn gamer culture into Oberlin College. You staged the first citizens' uprising against the humor-impaired, check-your-privilege bullies. But I have to say, and I'm fond of saying, they made a big mistake when they took on the gamers because you know how to slay a dragon. And
that was awesome.
You'd like to win.
Yeah.
So there it is, folks. The rate at which the wider culture is waking up to the truth about intolerant, gynocentric feminism is rapidly increasing. Yep, it's that mainstream anti-feminism that we've talked about here before. Mainstream anti-feminism. The rate at which the wider culture is waking up to the truth about intolerant, gynocentric feminism is rapidly increasing, and as long as we show up, eventually we'll turn the corner. If there's a GamerGate meetup near you, I encourage you to go and have fun, so long as you have genuine interest in the subject and aren't just there to proselytize. Our opponent's chief weapon is a threat narrative based on a nebulously defined other. All we have to do is show up, self-identify as that other, act like normal, healthy people, and before long, the entire narrative sounds utterly ridiculous to the wider culture and falls apart. Once we disarm feminists of their best weapon, our ability to advocate on behalf of men and boys will get a lot easier, as our philosophical opponents won't be able to lean on the image of the threatening other in the imaginations of the general public. They'll have to discuss facts, and they'll lose. And hey, if feminists show up to say hi and invite them to actually debate us sometime rather than hate on us. I believe the MHRM in the West is at a similar stage in its development as the gay rights movement was in the 1980s. On the one hand, homosexuality was still widely seen as deviant and threatening, yet everybody had a favorite band with a gay lead singer. Most people born after 1980 regarded homosexuality as nothing particularly abnormal, and at some point in the 2000s, resistance to gay marriage seemed to crumble overnight. That's not to say the campaigners for gay rights didn't work their asses off, but the most important groundwork was already laid in the 80s. GamerGate gives people who care deeply about the problems faced by boys and men the opportunity to lay that sort of groundwork now, by showing that we too are human and have the same type of real-world interests and concerns and hobbies that they do. And by the way, men's rights are human rights. So show up, smile, and if you see Milo, give that beautiful man a friendly wink for me. That's the article. And I don't know, Nick, what do you think about the future spin from this episode? How do you think that's going to go?
I think they're going to flush it down the memory hole because there is no way that they can spin this.
Well, they'll try.
How?
They'll try to flush it down the memory hole.
Well, no, I mean, they're just going to, whenever it comes up, they will dodge the subject. They are masters of this. Even as a seasoned feminist fighter myself, they can still divert me, and I've noticed they can still divert my attention onto something else when I'm trying to talk about one thing. They're really good at it.
Well, yeah, they are. That's why they've gotten so far.
Yeah.
They're good at what they do. But this bomb threat, okay, I don't think there was an actual bomb. I think it was a bomb threat.
Of course not. There was no actual bomb. There was no actual bomb there. But I mean, okay, how are they going to spin this?
Well, I was about to say, look at this and then put this in parallel with the episode that happened at Utah State with Anita Sarkeesian.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. When GamerGaters said, of course that comes from a third-party troll, then they go, no, it obviously came from GamerGator because you guys are a bunch of terrorists. Now we have this. We have Arthur Chu saying it ends tonight, trying more and more desperately to go. He went from pleading with the establishment, saying like, hey, or like he went from like not pleading. He went from being relatable and being like, oh, I have many fond memories there. You know, you're I want you to know that you're sponsoring a hate group. Here, take a look at these articles. To, well, I don't dine at these establishments, and many of my friends don't either. So he went from trying to be relatable to putting the lead on them, and then from there the bomb threat. Again, while there is no clear link between Chu and the threat, it can easily be spun by anybody, by third-party trolls or gamergators or MRAs or whatever. It can easily be spun. Look at this level of. Hold on a second. So look at this level of like this ascendancy. You know what I mean? Like going like. He went from you can say, look, he went from pleading to putting the lead on them to calling it a bomb threat. Right now, again,
there was a certain arc there.
Yeah. Now, again, I'm not saying that he did it, but I'm saying it could easily be made to look that way. So, so now their response is to say, well, clearly it was a third-party troll, not an anti-gamergator, not anyone like Arthur Chu or anybody else, just someone who looked at, just a third-party troll who looked at the situation. Anyway, we have our own Utah.
We have our own Utah.
Ultimately.
I'm thinking that in the future now, Well, we could say, well, it was just a troll, or we could suggest that it was even somebody on their side who called in the threat.
Yeah,
Or I'm sorry, forgive me. What I meant to say was they could suggest that it was somebody on our side who called in the threat to make their side look bad. They could suggest that, but no matter what they do, all we got to do is point to Utah State.
yeah, yeah. No matter, yeah, and they already have. They already have said that it was GamerGators who called in the threat, and GamerGators have already done exactly what you prescribed. They took those same claims and juxtaposed them with GamerGators saying, "Oh my God, clearly Anita Sarkeesian got one of her followers to call in the threat to Utah."
Which I wouldn't put beyond them, by the way. I think that's entirely possible.
So it puts us in a situation where they're making all these, where we're all making
We
crazy,
have a way to come back at them now.
yeah, we're all making crazy allegations about each other at this point.
That we can't prove, and maybe in the future we'll move ahead and stop making crazy allegations and just try to live on things that we can verify.
Exactly, exactly, and that's I think that's the takeaway message from all of this is it only matters what you can fucking prove factually.
And there's so little that they can prove. Like even all of these threats and this harassment and so on, uh, we don't know how much of it actually happened in the first place. And assuming that it did happen, I'm talking just Gamergate in general here. Even if it did happen, we don't know what was the source, who actually made these threats, uh, who sent these harassing messages. It could have been anybody.
Yeah, and
It could have been fabricated out of nothing by the feminist side, or it could have been sent by anybody out there in the world. And there's over 7 billion people on planet Earth, and anybody could have sent it. And to try to make that the guilt of some mythical group like GamerGate, and that's what GamerGate is, a mythical group,
yeah,
because it's not really a group at all. It's an idea that a few people are loosely clustered around. That's all it is.
and here's the thing: when you take away that all of the threats, all of the doxing, all of that drama, all of that meta argumentation can be done by either side and is completely meaningless. Then you come back to square one, and all that matters are the facts.
And the facts, the ideas, the issues, all of that.
Yeah, and that puts us on a playing field that feminists cannot hope to compete on.
Exactly. Gotta love it, man. Gotta love it. So, and finally, of course, I think it's just great that this little latest Bombgate episode came so soon after the Expogate. It was just they were like 2 weeks apart,
Yeah, well,
and the juxtaposition of those two things was perfect.
yeah, and I really do hope that those other Gamergate meetings happen in other cities, and I hope they become a regular thing.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah. I mean, I would hate to see Gamergate become some kind of orthodoxy, which ultimately happens with every good idea. But
Well, if and when that happens, then it'll be time for somebody else to come up with another good idea and break away and then eventually become an orthodoxy themselves. And
and
then
so
the cycle
yeah,
goes on and on and on. That seems to be how the world works.
yeah. But it's working right now, isn't it?
It is, and I'm very satisfied with the way it's working.
Yeah.
And as far as the memory hole effect, well, it's up to us to make sure the memory hole thing doesn't happen. I mean, we're here to spike the memory hole.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the great thing about the internet is that when you try to get away with shit, when you go online and you make very bold statements that turn out to be completely full of shit, you can't just drop it and walk away without apologizing for it or something.
All right. Well, let's move along now. Got another item to share with you all. This is Q number 3 on the Q list. And this is a really interesting story. This is another item that was published on AVFM recently, but it's just so good. Why yet another liberal progressive woman abandons feminism. This is a real gut-wrencher of a story. I am not the typical woman you see posting pictures and declaring she doesn't need feminism. I considered myself a feminist for 30 years. Like most women who consider themselves feminists, I didn't read feminist literature or take women's studies courses. I just believed it was about equality. I believed, and still do, that women are as intelligent and capable as men and should have equal rights and opportunities. That is what I thought feminism was all about. I was wrong. Well, I'm going to take exception to this statement here just briefly. I believe and still do that women are as intelligent and capable as men. I am going to say no to that. Women are not as intelligent and capable as men. Some women are as intelligent and capable as some men, and other women are not. There's no such person as women, and there's no such person as men. There are just people. There is this person, that person, the next person, and people happen one at a time. Okay, semantics matters. Trust me, it does. In June of 2013, my boyfriend was driving me to work. We were pulled over by the Ashland police, and he was arrested for rape, cuffed, and thrown in the maximum security rape tank. I didn't know they had rape tanks. I knew they had drunk tanks, but rape tanks? The maximum security rape tank at the Jackson County Jail on $1 million bail. It seems there had already been a secret. Ooh, listen to this. It seems there had already been a secret grand jury that had indicted on just the testimony of his accuser.
Yeah, that shit is becoming more and more common. Secret trials, secret juries.
By anonymous accusers or no evidence. Yeah. By the way, Ashland police, the Ashland in question is Ashland, Oregon. And the sweet, beautiful state of Oregon breaks my heart. Ashland is a city in southern Oregon. It's maybe 10 miles north of the California border. And it just breaks my heart that such things are happening in Oregon. Oh. I was completely aware of the allegations. His father's now ex-wife, Lisa, a mentally ill woman with a history of false reporting, was doing it to punish his father. It turns out the judge in the divorce had already dismissed her claims. Get ready for this. It turns out the judge in the divorce had already dismissed her claims against her husband of sexually abusing the Chihuahuas.
I use the word unreal a lot, and you tell me it's real.
Apparently this is real. I mean...
what kind of a person would accuse another person of sexually abusing fucking
a little dog? Yeah.
I mean, what kind of,
what kind of imagination does it require to come up with something like that?
Wow. Well, I mean... yeah, what kind of depravity? Yeah.
So, went to the police. He sexually abused the Chihuahuas. You got evidence? Did you do a rape kit on those dogs? Were the dogs drunk, maybe?
That they wanted it.
Oh, Nick, please. Sexually abusing the Chihuahuas. Well, here we go. This is feminism. Feminism wants to empower women to go to the police and tell the police that some man raped dogs. You go, girl. This is feminism, okay? This is feminism. It's all about sexually abusing the Chihuahuas. All right, now she was going after Greg to hurt his father. So she was just going after this man, this poor man, accusing him of rape just to get back at somebody else. She didn't even have a fight with this man. She had a fight with somebody else, but she was just using him as a pawn in her revenge game. I don't think it gets any sicker than that. She had told a friend that if she didn't get the house, the boat, and the dogs in the divorce, she would destroy his father's life by claiming that he raped her. I'm assuming that the dogs that she talks about here are the same chihuahuas that were mentioned earlier. Okay, I sprung into action. After alerting work to the situation, I drove home to start making phone calls. A terrible mistake had been made. I believed that I could get them the information and he would be released. I was wrong. First, I found out that the police had not done an investigation. When Greg found out what Lisa was claiming, he immediately contacted the police. It took weeks for them to get back to him. Weeks for them to get back to him. He went down and told the detective in charge what had and had not happened. There had never been any sex, consensual or otherwise. Greg gave him a list of witnesses and informed him of her mental illness and the fact that she was on a list of psychotropic drugs. No witnesses were ever contacted. How does this happen? How does a completely innocent man with a completely clean record and no evidence that a crime was committed end up being thrown in jail and held on an enormous bail? We thought it must be complete incompetence. We were wrong. It turns out the Ashland Police Department was rolling out a new program. It is called You Have Options, and it is being widely celebrated and implemented in police forces nationwide. Nationwide. Under this program, the police act as more as rape crisis counselors than detectives. They blindly believe the accuser, allow the accuser to decide how much of an investigation takes place, if any. It also allows the accuser to decide if the witnesses or the accused are interviewed or informed of the charges. If Greg's father had not alerted him to what she was doing, he might not have been aware of it until they were arresting him. So this You Have Options program is a way to make secret accusations and secret trials against people.
Yeah,
And some idiot out there still doesn't see what the problem is.
It's always dressed up as, empowering victims.
Well, this is feminism, folks. This is feminism. You stand back and let feminism have its way, and you're going to see more and more stuff like this happening in the world. Guaranteed. This is the fruit of feminism, the poison fruit from that poison tree. This is why we fight. In the week after Greg's arrest, I did the investigation the police should have done. I found Lisa's daughter, who was willing to testify for the defense on Lisa's multiple false accusations. I had established that Lisa was not even in the state at the time she claims the assault happened, 2 years prior. And I got a letter from a friend of Lisa's who claimed that Lisa had premeditated the false allegation to punish Greg's father in the event she did not get what she wanted in the divorce. I found a lot of exculpatory evidence and got it to the police. Making matters worse, in that first week, I was also fired from the job that I loved and was given no explanation. It would all be worth it if I could get Greg out of that horrible place. The detective put together a report and delivered it to the DA, who promptly ignored it. It turns out that Oregon has hearsay exception laws that allow for the indictment for rape on just the accuser's testimony if there is no other evidence and if there is no reason to question that testimony. I got to read that sentence again. It turns out that Oregon has hearsay exception laws that allow for the indictment for rape on just the accuser's testimony if there is no other evidence and if there is no reason to question the testimony. Let's see. Long story short, Nick, what does that say?
Sorry?
Basically, what are they saying in that sentence? Hearsay exception laws, indictment for rape based on nothing but the accuser's testimony, no evidence, and there's no reason to question the testimony. In other words, you go in there and say, I got raped, or somebody got raped, or there was a rape, and that's it.
And I'm afraid that they're going to harm me if any kind of,
I felt afraid.
if you do any substantial examination of my claims, that will put me in danger. So you can't do it. So I basically now have the power to walk into a cop shop, and make a claim against somebody, and they got to go do it. No, they got to go take care of it. No questions asked.
Mm-hmm.
So you're you are now turning any woman who is a convincing actress into someone who has the legal power to put the hit on someone.
Yeah, they're weaponizing that person.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you hear about things like this, I mean that just explains why men are going their own way. You want to know why men are going their own way? Well, there you go. There's a good example of why.
Yeah, and because there's a lot of people, a lot of men and women, but mostly women, who they hear about something like that and they immediately wave it off or rationalize it or justify it somehow because they are the shallow kind of person who understands that this is benefiting them. This is benefiting their sex. You know,
It's serving their interest in some way.
in the very short term. And this does not empower all women. This does not, as the author of the story shows, she was greatly disempowered. You know, she brought evidence of her husband's innocence to light, and feminist organizations asked her to be quiet about it.
No.
And the cops didn't listen. So this is not empowering all women. This is empowering women who are scumbags.
It's empowering women who are scumbags. It's not so much about empowering women as it is about hurting men.
Well,
when feminism empowers women, what feminism is really doing is empowering women to hurt men.
yeah, empowering.
That's the core of their agenda.
Empowering the kind of women who are perfectly okay with being being the hatchet man, or well, not even the hatchet man, because they get the cops to go do it. Being
It's about maximizing. To make the long story short, I would say it's about maximizing the damage to men. It's about hurting men even more than it is about empowering women.
again, those women only being women who are the kind of women who are so amoral that they are willing to.
Yeah, feminist women,
Pretty much.
in a word, yeah.
Narcissistic, borderline personality. Yeah, those women.
So feminism is the project to increase the power of women, but more than that, it's the project to damage men as much as possible and to recruit women to work on that project.
I think there have been periods in history where some orthodoxy has risen to power and given preference to particularly damaged men before. And when that happens, no one has a problem looking back on it and seeing something was really, really wrong. But when you do the same thing for women,
Well, this is just a tangled can of worms here, and I don't know what to say sometimes. All right, it turns out that Oregon has hearsay exception laws that allow for the indictment for rape on just the accuser's testimony if there is no other evidence and if there is no reason to question that testimony. By not doing an investigation, the police managed to avoid all the evidence and all the reasons to question her claims, and as a safety net for the DA, just in case they are completely wrong and destroying innocent people's lives, the DA gets the grand jury to give them immunity. This is a recipe for disaster. No accountability. Okay, folks, this is reality. This is what's happening in the world today. It's just going to get worse. It's not going to get better. It's not going to stay the same. It's going to get worse and worse. Fortunately, Greg got an amazing public defender. She uncovered the fact that Lisa had claimed that Greg had been molesting her for years, and it was all in her psychiatric report. The police had requested that report over a year ago, and the DA was still waiting for it. When the report finally arrived, 53 days after Greg had been incarcerated and the day before jury selection, there was absolutely no mention of it. Lisa had made it up and lied to the grand jury. A felony. The charges were dismissed in the interest of justice. Greg was released and I had him home. This is where the real learning began. At this point, I still believe that feminism was about equality. If feminists knew this was happening, they would be concerned, too. Again, I was wrong. Feminists asked us not to come forward with the story. They did not want other women to be discouraged from coming forward.
And I want to talk about that argument right now, saying that you shouldn't publicize a case where a false accuser has damaged your life because it might harm real victims of sexual assault. It might prevent them from coming forward. That's like saying not to allow legitimate businesses to operate, or rather, sorry, that's like saying not to come forward with complaints about fraudsters because that might prevent people from starting up their own legitimate businesses. It's completely insane, and that claim in and of itself should be attacked savagely whenever it is made. That's
Basically, what they're doing is giving immunity to a certain class of criminals. Okay, they did not want other women to be discouraged from coming forward. The DA chose not to file charges against Lisa, stating that just as Hartley is innocent under the law because of his constitutional protection, so too the same presumption of innocence applies to his accuser. How would we prove it? There was no confession or recantation. So the only time they will consider it a false report is when the accuser actually recants and confesses to the crime. The only evidence there had ever been of a crime in this case was of her filing a false report and committing perjury before a grand jury. No wonder they get to claim that false reporting is rare. What is really rare is women admitting that they falsely accused innocent men. Apparently, we were supposed to go home and try to get on with our lives. We were supposed to pretend it never happened. The state, the city, and police refused to acknowledge what happened. It wasn't their fault. There would be no justice. At least Rolling Stone admitted their mistake and apologized. We cannot even get them to acknowledge we exist. I descended on social media like a storm. Surely those good people on Huffington Post, Raw Stories, Salon, among others, would care that this was happening. False reporting is not only horrendous for the accused, it makes it harder for actual rape victims to get justice. The response was being called a traitor to my gender, to be told I was internalizing my misogyny. I actually had a feminist threaten to destroy my life and contact my employer to get me fired. Joke's on her. I had no job. Most of the feminists who bothered to listen came back with attacks. My boyfriend should learn to control himself. I calmly explained he had done nothing wrong. They could not hear it. Feminists repeat the lie that false reporting is rare often enough that they blindly believe it. Even when the cases that feminist journalists use to prove that there is a rape crisis end up being false reportings, they still choose to believe the accuser despite evidence that they are lying, or claim that at least they brought attention to the problem. They are so blinded they cannot even admit that a crime with actual victims has been committed. The common narrative among feminists is that women do not lie about rape. They also charge anyone who bothers to question the veracity of those claims with victim blaming. There have been recent protests at Berkeley and Ohio University against affording the accused due process. These feminists feel that since women do not lie about rape, we should just be able to assume that all accused are guilty. These feminists feel that since women do not lie about rape, we should just be able to assume that all accused are guilty. There is absolutely no concern that innocent lives may be destroyed. When the Rolling Stone came forward with an apology over the article on the UVA gang rape, which also ended up being a false reporting, there was a tremendous outrage. Feminists were not angry because innocent men were falsely accused and had their reputations damaged. They were not angry because a woman had committed the crime of false reporting. They were angry that Rolling Stone had followed this narrative and inadvertently exposed the fact that women do, in fact, lie about rape. The fact that there were actual victims of the false reporting is not even mentioned. Not only did they not care about the victims of false reporting, they flatly refused to admit that they even existed. Fortunately, a local monthly publication was willing to cover our nightmare and wrote an amazing story, but people needed to know this outside of our little valley, though. The You Have Options program responsible was being outsourced to other states. It was a finalist for the Weber-Seavey Award for Quality in Law Enforcement. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand was promoting it to Congress as a solution to the rape crisis and was using it as the model for the Campus Accountability and Safety Act program. I wrote articles and letters to every media outlet I could find contact information for, from Democracy Now! To Fox News. Absolutely no one was interested in covering the story. How could they continue to claim that false reporting was rare if they acknowledged it was happening? The bigger question we should all be asking is, if there is indeed a rape crisis and if false reporting is so rare, why is it these journalists who are intent on exposing the rape crisis keep exposing false reportings and cannot seem to find an actual rape? What I learned in those first months was that feminism was not interested in equality. Feminism is a profoundly dishonest ideology that puts forth dishonest studies designed to get results they want. Feminists attack anyone who even attempts to point out its shortcomings and hypocrisy. Feminism is in no way interested in the truth, and feminists are completely unconcerned with the injustices suffered by the falsely accused, all while claiming that they are fighting for men's rights as well. Of course, that's why we should all just shut the fuck up. I am a strong, intelligent woman who fights for equality. I am an educated, middle-aged, hairy-legged, liberal hippie. I thought I was a feminist. I was wrong. Well, end of article. That was a good one. And I don't think I have much to add. Nick, you have anything to add to that?
No, I read that article too, and I was very impressed with it. I mean, if anything, it just demonstrates, like when she's saying, I thought that if I brought real hard evidence to these people, they would care, and I was shocked to find out that they didn't. I think we've all gone through that. I think that's.
I'm surprised that there are still people around, even at this late date, who still think that way.
Well, people got a lot of shit going on in their lives, right? That's kind of what feminism banks on. Like I've had people tell me, "Why are you so focused on feminism? That hasn't mattered since the '70s." You know,
Don't you just want to grab those people by the hair and just twirl them around, 49 times?
just just open up the nearest issue of Metro magazine. Just show some feminist bullshit from that. I swear to God, there's this publication called Metro. It's a free magazine. It gets distributed across Edmonton, across Canada, I think. And I think it might even be in England, although it might be a different Metro. But every single day, I can pick up an issue of Metro magazine and read them shilling feminism. Every goddamn day. And when it's gone ambient as it has, when it's part of the background noise, and the bra burners and people like Big Red only come up occasionally as extremists who don't really represent true feminism. And then a lot of people who have nothing better to do with their lives, or not nothing, but they have a lot of better things to do with their lives. They have kids to raise. They have bills to pay. They got shit going on. They really can't be bothered with to look at feminism because
Because they got other things to do.
they got other things to do,
Yeah,
and and uh, uh, and feminism just sort of sneaks by as being not really relevant to them, or relevant when it's convenient. We've all got female coworkers who are not that bright, and not that women aren't that bright, but what I mean is I'm referring to women.
no, well, women are not that bright, except the ones that are not that bright. The ones who are not that bright are not that bright. Okay,
Anyway,
and they're out there.
there are women who are not that bright, and
They
those
exist.
those women tend to gravitate towards feminism because it gives them a sense of power that they know that they're lacking with their lack of mind. Um,
It appeals to all of their base instincts.
yeah, yeah. So you can have someone just tossing out little truisms like, there would be no war if women ran the world, and they don't identify as feminists, right? They push it along when no one's noticing, but then when someone takes notice, then it becomes feminism hasn't been relevant since the 1970s. What are you talking about? You're crazy.
I'm afraid, I'm sad to say this, but I'm afraid the majority of people out there at this point in time have got their head up their ass.
Yeah. Yes, they
They
do.
really do. That's brutal and harsh to say, but I think it's the truth.
Ah. So, again,
Feels good to be. It feels good to be part of the Vanguard, even though it's a curse.
yeah,
It
yeah,
feels good to be on the right side of history.
yeah. I hope that's what happens. I really hope they don't just pull out some super weapon and all of this is for nothing. It is a possibility, but yeah, yeah,
There's a possibility an asteroid will come along and put an end to everything.
yeah. But it does look like we're winning right now, and there is something I'd like to tell the audience.
Well, we're gaining ground. We're steadily gaining ground, but as we do, the war keeps escalating, and the enemy keeps refining their tactics and building new weapons, and to which we respond in kind.
Yeah, and they are going to. They already have tried to spin the uh, the Cafe Center for Men and Families as a victory for feminism. I saw that happen in Metro magazine.
Hmm.
Um,
No, I haven't seen that.
I'll see if I can track it down for you.
Yeah, please
But
do.
they've already tried that. This is and that was months ago. And recently, I had a conversation with someone who they were saying that what feminism is going to do now is take responsibility for all of the pro-male initiatives that are being made. And so they're going to say, we did that, but these pesky MRAs and anti-feminists, they made it all harder for us. So what we're I think what we should be focusing on now is preserving quotes from these people, preserving proof of these people's complete misandry and their total authoritarian nature, so that a couple of years down the road, when the non-feminist revolution has pushed even further and gotten even more ground, when these people are trying to weasel out of it, as they always do, they will always they will always abandon the truth of what happened, and just as naturally as they breathe, try to reframe history in a way that favors them.
In other words, they'll change the narrative as necessary.
And yeah, so they're going to claim that they were always for men, that we stood in the way of these things. You have to get
They're depending on the memory hole effect operating
you
effectively.
have to preserve proof of what they're saying so you can call bullshit when they switch, when they try to change and take no responsibility for what they were saying before. This is
Everybody out there, do you hear this? Archive stuff.
yeah.
Archive stuff.
You know, just a little while ago, they recently caught some old Nazis who had escaped to some very remote parts of South America. And they finally caught these two brothers, and they were ancient. Um, you know, feminists, it's going to be like at the end of World War II, when all these Nazis, they fled, they claimed to be part of the Navy or just the plain old military. They were never part of the Nazi Party, of course not. Uh, and that's what we're going to see with feminists. They were only drawn to feminism because it was an unquestionable orthodoxy in the first place that allowed them to operate with impunity. And so those same people are going to be abandoned. Once they see feminism as a sinking ship, they are going to do what rats do and abandon it, and they are going to try to cover their tracks and say that they were never part of that. In fact, they may even claim to have been anti-feminist. In fact, I'm sure of it.
Okay, that's why we need to gather evidence.
And these people, like,
I've been gathering that kind of evidence myself for years.
yeah, but everybody, because if one computer gets taken out, well, then there should be an entire community of people who say,
Burn CD-ROMs with that information.
yeah, so
Put it on a thumb drive.
yeah, yeah, get it,
Share it out with anybody and everybody.
yeah, get it out, keep it preserved, because this is going to be like some Nazi hunter shit in not too long. They are losing, and we have to stick it to. I've said before that I'm not sold, like, that my end goal is to see feminism fall into the same disrepute as racism, and that means that means disabusing people of the lie that women currently get or have historically gotten the short end of the stick, and that I prefer that to nailing certain offenders to the wall. But that said, nailing certain offenders to the wall is going to be part of seeing this ideology fall, right? Because when you get punished for something, I don't mean murdered or beaten or 40
Yes,
lashes.
holding individuals accountable, I think, is what gives closure to all of this.
Yeah, yeah. When I say punishment, I don't mean like corporal punishment or anything like that. But yeah,
Exposure, social chastisement.
social chastisement and having an authority figure punish you somehow.
Being knocked off your pedestal, being dragged through the mud.
Yeah, because
Being exposed.
yeah, that's what solidifies
The revolution.
a revolution, a change in power. Right, they are in power
Change
now.
power, it's what gives closure to the
Yeah,
revolution and serves as a marker that the change of power has occurred.
yeah.
By
Otherwise,
holding the guilty parties accountable.
yeah. Otherwise, they're just going to fly under the radar and pull together the same shit in a decade when it is all blown over.
This is how we put the. This is how we write in the record of history with indelible ink. I mean, this is part of writing history. all of what you're talking about here, Nick, is part of writing history. And we, as the victors, if we are to truly win and to truly cement our victory, we have to get in there and write the history,
Yeah.
and lay the record on the table for all the world to see.
Yeah.
So this is very important stuff you're talking about. And let me reiterate here, everybody gather evidence. Everybody out there, if you want to be a part of the great work here, be an archivalist. Anything you see of interest, gather it, save it, turn it into a PDF file, turn it into any kind of a text file, save things like videos in whatever form you can. Better you put it on removable media like a thumb drive, like a CD-ROM, like a DVD, or what have you, and good that you share it out with as many people as possible, so that this information is robust and redundant everywhere. But yeah, we do need archivalists, and there's good work to be done.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many times I have seen pure gold in stupidity from the feminist opposition and failed to record it, and they saw the stupid there and they took it down, and I could have had it, but I didn't.
I know, I've done that too. It's just so much of it out there. It's like, there's an orchard full of ripe fruit, and you can't go and just grab all the fruit in one swoop.
Yeah, and you kick yourself. You kick yourself when they take it down because you could have had it again.
You could have screen capped it.
Yeah, you could have got it. So don't listen to my tale of woe.
If it's something archivable on the internet, you can always register it with something like the Wayback Machine.
Yeah, when you see gold, snap it up. Snap it up, because it might not be there forever.
Yeah, absolutely. But the more people we have doing this work, the more eyes we got out there, eyes and ears we have out there gathering the intel, of course, the better it's going to be for all of us. And the easier it's going to be for us in the future when we, as ultimate victors, begin to write history. So, I think we're getting down toward the end of what we had scheduled for this episode here. That was a good article. Everybody, look at cue number 4. This is a Twitter tweet that I made just yesterday, some time ago. I wrote an article on AVFM about Anita Sarkeesian exposing the Kevin Dobson scandal, which basically was an incident where Anita Sarkeesian fabricated a story of being threatened on Twitter. The whole thing was a lie. She just made it up. The problem is she fucked up. And we got the goods on her. And it's all written in my AVFM article. You go to cue number 4, and that will take you to a Twitter tweet, and the Twitter tweet in turn will link you to my article on AVFM. Please go there, look at that, read my article on AVFM, and then retweet my tweet. I have so far, last time I checked, 25 people have retweeted that. Go in there and make it 26, 27, 28. Hell, make it 1,000. Everybody, do that. Spread it around. And archive my AVFM article, because there I lay out the case against Anita Sarkeesian in the Kevin Dobson affair better than anyone else has done, to my knowledge. So help out. Retweet, archive. That's cue number 4. And cue number 5, if you haven't seen my new blog, counter-fem2, that's counterfem2.blogspot.com. That's cue number 5. Go there, check it out. There's all kinds of stuff there. There is the best material from the old counter-feminist blog. I am gradually reposting that material on the new blog. So what you're going to get on the new blog is just nothing but good, solid material. And You know, that's a gold mine of all things fetal bogey in there, if that's of any interest to you. That's counterfem2.blogspot.com. And finally, cue number 5, we have an email address. It's vanguardreport@usa.com. You want to get a hold of us for any reason at all, that's how you do it. vanguardreport@usa.com. And let's see, we're coming up on an hour and a half here. I think I'm ready to roll it up now. Nick, anything you want to say or share with us before we call it a day?
Just as usual, if you are anti-feminist or a gamer-gator or a masculinist or a masculist or a woman against feminism,
if you're any kind of activated non-feminist whatsoever,
yeah, you can look me up. I'm easy to reach at mensrightsedmonton.com, and you can contact me if you contact us. So you send me an email there, and it'll show up on my iPhone right away. So yeah, again, check us out on YouTube, see what we're all about. Men's Rights, one word, Edmonton. You can follow us on Twitter at Men's Rights Ed. And, you know, be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.
All right. Be excellent to each other. And I think we're going to wrap it up now. Always remember, feminism is what we say it is. We will win the battle for feminism's soul. Feminism's soul belongs to us. Feminism is what we say it is. And on that note, everybody, going to wrap up episode number 48 of the Vanguard Report. See you again next week for episode number 49. Ciao.